Imagine a game where strategy and skill reign supreme, where the outcome is never certain, and the thrill of victory is always within reach. Welcome to Chess Master. Chess is a game that has captivated minds for centuries. From Napoleon Bonaparte to Albert Einstein, some of history's greatest minds have been obsessed with chess. And for good reason. It's a game that improves critical thinking, problem-solving, and strategy, making you a better thinker and decision-maker in all aspects of life. But, if you're new to chess, it can seem daunting. Where do you start? How do the pieces move? What's the objective of the game? Fear not, dear beginner. In this video, we'll take you on a journey to master the basics of chess, from setting up the board to delivering checkmate. Over the next few minutes, we'll break down the game into easy-to-understand concepts, using animations, graphics, and examples to illustrate key ideas. By the end of this video, you'll be ready to challenge your friends, family, and even the chess masters themselves. So, are you ready to join the ranks of chess enthusiasts worldwide? Let's start our journey and discover the thrill of chess together. To start playing chess, you need to set up the board correctly. The chessboard consists of 64 squares, arranged in an 8x8 grid. The board has rows and columns, labeled with letters and numbers. The rows are labeled with letters A to H, and the columns are numbered 1 to 8. The pieces are placed on the board in a specific arrangement. The player playing white sets up their pieces on the first row, and the player playing black sets up their pieces on the 8th row. The objective of the game is to checkmate your opponent's king. This means the king is under attack, and there is no way to move the king out of capture. There are 6 types of pieces in chess: the king, queen, rook, bishop, knight, and pawn. Each piece moves and captures differently. The king can move 1 square in any direction, horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. The queen is the most powerful piece and can move any number of squares in any direction. The rook can move horizontally or vertically any number of squares. The bishop can move diagonally in any direction. The knight moves in an L shape, 2 squares in one direction, then 1 square to the side. The pawn can move forward 1 square, but captures diagonally 1 square. Some basic rules and concepts. Players take turns moving 1 piece at a time. You can only move 1 piece per turn. When you land on a square occupied by an opponent's piece, you capture that piece and remove it from the board. If a pawn moves 2 squares forward from its starting position, an opponent's pawn that could have captured it if it had only moved 1 square can still capture it en passant as if it had only moved 1 square. The king can move 3 squares towards a rook, and the rook moves to the square the king crossed. This is the only move that allows the king to move more than 1 square. When your king is under attack, it's said to be in check. You need to move your king to a safe square or block the check with one of your pieces. When your king is in check, and there's no way to move the king out of capture, it's checkmate, and you lose the game. If both players agree to end the game with a draw, or if the same position occurs 3 times, it's a stalemate. If both players agree to end the game with a draw, or if the same position occurs 3 times, it's a draw. The opening is the starting phase of the game, where you develop your pieces and control the center of the board. The center squares are the most important on the board, as they provide the most mobility and control. Pawns are the foot soldiers of the game. They can move forward 1 square, but capture diagonally 1 square. Pawns are important for controlling the center and creating barriers for your opponent. Some tips for moving and using pawns effectively include: use pawns to block attacks from your opponent's pieces. Supporting, use pawns to support your pieces and create barriers for your opponent. If a pawn reaches the opposite side of the board, it can promote to any piece, except a king. Some examples of how pieces work together include: use your pieces to attack your opponent's king and create threats. Use your pieces to defend your king and block attacks from your opponent. Use your pieces to support each other and create barriers for your opponent. When you attack an opponent's piece, and they can only move it by exposing a more valuable piece to capture. When you attack 2 of your opponent's pieces at the same time, and they can only move 1 of them. When you attack an opponent's piece, and they can only move it by exposing a less valuable piece to capture. The endgame is the final phase of the game, where you convert advantages into a win. Some tips for delivering checkmate are: use your pieces to attack your opponent's king and create threats. Create barriers for your opponents. And there you have it, folks. You've just learned the basics of how to play chess like a pro. From setting up the board to delivering checkmate, we've covered it all. Remember, practice makes perfect. The more you play, the better you'll become. And don't worry if you make mistakes, they're an essential part of the learning process. So, what's next? Keep practicing, and soon you'll be challenging your friends and family. Want to improve faster? Stay connected with our channel where we will be helping you continually for free. Join the chess community. Connect with other players online or in person, and learn from their experiences. Share your own games and get feedback from others. Most importantly, have fun. Chess is a game of strategy, skill, and creativity. Enjoy the journey, and don't be afraid to try new things. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the chessboard.